In the previous video, I've just briefly explained, this nominal GDP and real GDP. What it is, this is real GDP is discounted through dividing nominal GDP with inflation rate or prices, level of prices. The prices in the most probably consumer price index, or mostly consumer price index it will be representing, because there is inflation which can be explained through producer price index as well. Anyway, so uh, inflation has been a little bit more than 20% for the last year, and there was a risk of a recession. Not only that the risk has been avoided, because what we know about the economy, uh, GDP in nominal terms has increased actually. But how would it really be explained through economics? What should it represent? Let me explain it. Expected inflation for the next year, macroeconomy has been stabilized. Pakistan has 3% GDP growth rate has occurred, and now expected inflation would be, on average would be 5 to 6%, as compared to the previous year, which is like kind of nearly 20%. So with 5% inflation rate, now you have two choices, statistical choices. Now, if inflation rate is going to be 5%, what would be the real value of budget allocation? Debt servicing, Pakistan has actually, it's in absolute numbers in millions of rupees, mostly 7,000 Arab rupees, 7 or 8,000 Arab rupees debt servicing. Defense budget allocated approximately 2.5 अरब रुपए, दो शरिया अरब रुपए, 2,000 अरब रुपए, and development expenditure 1,000 अरब रुपए. Absolute terms, nominal terms, and represented through its value, which represents the current inflation rate. I mean, this is how that is allocated. So now, if you previous year, the defense budget was in this next year budget allocation, it is 2,500 अरब रुपए. Previous year it was 22,000 अरब रुपए. So there is like 300 अरब रुपए. It has been increased. Development expenditure instead was more than 1,000 Arab rupees, which is now more or less 1,000 Arab rupees, which is a decrease. And defense expenditure show a proportionate increase which is not significant. And now these are absolute terms. Now if you consider the high inflation rate, because what you do in economics is you don't really deal with absolute numbers. You transform them into standardized definitions. So what is the way? Development expenditure as a percentage of GDP. Defense expenditure as a percentage of GDP. Debt servicing as a percentage of GDP. Now, what kind of GDP you should be considering? Either you are going to transform both the variables, defense expenditure into the real variable by also this defense allocation of 1,000 billion rupees. 1,000 billion rupees divided by the inflation rate, which is 20%, and nominal GDP, which has been observed for the last fiscal year, maybe in billions of rupees, would as well be divided by the inflation rate. Then you have a certain number, but that inflation rate was so high. So by default, if you compare it with before this incumbent government of Honorable Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif took the office, the stats would represent a lot of improvement. But anyhow, let me bring a little bit of a more simplicity to it. What I'm trying to say is, in an absolute term, the rise in budgetary allocations for defense or for development is actually more than what the nominal values suggest. Any statistician can take the cue from it and would make two analyses. Inflation rate that has already been observed, which is more than 20%. Trying to transform the variables through percentages, dividing development expenditure with GDP, as well as dividing military expenditure as a GDP or debt servicing it as a percentage of GDP, while taking the real values, discounting them for inflation rate. And for the next year, inflation will be 5%. Now imagine, if this budget allocation is actually showing the nominal values, which have a robust real value actually. And that is, this is kind of it's not economic theory, it's not playing with statistics, it's the real picture. What it needs to be understood through it is that, this economic growth rate has a certain explanation in economics. I mean, it's only developing countries that need to grow more than 6%.